You are listening to The Four Corners, the official podcast of No Counters, No Combos. What is up, Square Nation? Welcome back to the Four Corners podcast. And today we have a very special guest who I've been waiting for quite some time to get a hold of, but we finally worked something out. And today, we are being joined by the one and only Aandroidd himself. How are you? How's everything going? And thank you so much for being on with us today.
I'm good. Glad to be here. As always, I've been meeting to be on it and listen to all the other podcasts, and now I'm here, so I'm happy.
Well, that's good. We're definitely glad to have you, and we're excited. We're going to gear up for a nice episode this week. I do remember the first time I ever had words with you was a while back now. If I can remember, it was definitely back a few months ago. I was playing on Untap with one of my teammates. Shout out to him, Giovanni, and you just kind of, plopped yourself into our game, and we just started talking, and you had mentioned something about doing a collaboration, and at that point I knew who you were, but I was at the stage in my YouTube career, I guess you can call it, where I didn't know that people knew who I was. So I was just like, whoa, like, this is a big thing, I need to jump on this. And there's too many moving pieces, and I never got around to actually collaborating, which we still haven't done on YouTube specifically. But I'm glad that we were able to kind of sit down and have a conversation about everything. So I really appreciate you being on here with us. It means a lot. So with that being said, obviously the whole YouTube community and Dragon Ball Super community in general, we kind of follow each other. And, I remember when Joey started his channel at Crossworlds. I remember when Hayden, the Egman, started his channel over there. But I don't really remember when you started yours, probably because you were already well established when I started following you. If you could just give me a little bit of history as to how long you've been doing the whole YouTube thing, I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's really hard to say. I wasn't a DBS like YouTuber, or that wasn't my intent. When I started my own channel, and that kind of explains why my name hasn't changed, why my logo or my thing hasn't changed. I've always been a believer where I can kind of just be me, and then just kind of make videos and see what kind of comes out of it. And that doesn't require me to rebrand. That doesn't require me to do really anything. It just requires me to be me, and whatever context comes from me, I can kind of work with that. I know I kind of just talked in circles there, but I originally started in doing Dokkan videos, actually.
Okay.
So I did Dokkan videos from like my actual channel started in 2017. Like some of my videos are still there, actually. If you go all the way back then. Like if you look at my oldest videos, my Dokkan videos are there. I want to keep those up because I still love them. Like I still really like them, even though they weren't that great. And then about 6 months after that, I started playing the DBS card game, last March. Yeah, last March or something. It hasn't been that long. It hasn't really hasn't been that long. So it's been only over a year. And I never played any competitive card game as much as I did for this one. I never did content as much as I did for this one. And even before then, you can't obviously, but if I think about the other stuff that I've done, I've had a couple other channels that I've done with friends and different teams and different content creators, but that is in the wind. No one will ever know about those unless I put them out there. So I went past that. I did the Dokkan stuff, and I started playing that, and then I started doing some stuff on Untap, and then that's when I was like, dude, there's obviously a market for this, and this is obviously an upcoming game. So I was just like, let me just put a little bit more of eggs in those baskets, and just kind of understand not only the game, the analysis, but also the direction for what people want, and that would include deck profiles, that would include news. I didn't really see too much of that. I don't want to take credit for this, but I feel like I'm the only one who did previews back then. The only one I knew who did previews as much as I did was, what's his name? Master Merrick. Yeah, Master Merrick. You
like, like the set previews and stuff.
Yeah, and I was just like, why is no one doing this? This is like important stuff. This is the game. So I started doing that. I started doing deck profiles, started doing stuff on Untap, and it just became a thing where I just really enjoyed it and I never stopped. So, I'm really glad that I kind of also had the philosophy when you mentioned that, I was like, we should collab, because I really wanted to start bringing more and more content creators, no matter what size it was. If I thought that, not so much if you had potential, but that you were determined, and I knew that you wanted to, like, bring more to the community as well as the game. I wanted to bring that to my channel as well. So that's one of the things that I still now, like, if I look at a channel that's like 300-400 subscribers, or has been around for like a couple months, but they're gaining a lot of traction or whatever, I don't care. I'm still going to try to reach out and, and try to help you out or help each other out. It's the same thing for Egman. I remember Egman, I was at 1,000 or almost 1,000 subs. That my man was like at 100, and me and him we're still trying to collab and still trying to talk and all this other stuff. So I'm really happy that Egman is like, in the 1500s or even more. I don't even know now.
Yeah, he jumped up like quick. Like I remember when he first started, and he started a little bit later than I did. But I remember when I hit 1,000, he was still in the hundreds, and now he's almost at 15K. He's almost at 1,500 subs, and it's like, damn, he jumped up quick. But he does phenomenal work. I mean, the quality content that he's putting out, and his analysis and everything. So he's gonna get there no matter what. It was just a matter of time. So I'm glad that he stuck with it. It's good that he did that.
Yeah, and I don't think the number of subs is contingent of the quality, of course, and that's just that should be obvious. But I think the amount of content and the way that you put out content is also pretty important. And I think that's also the thing that I wanted to kind of make sure that I do, because I used to do like every single day a video, and I busted my ass for that. But then I got a little tired, I got a little exhausted from that, and then I started doing events, and I started doing other stuff, and then work and school kind of got in the way for that too. So now I only have a couple of days to record. That means I only have maybe 3 or 4 times I can do actual video. Like I do a video in like an hour maybe. So sometimes I have to do a script, sometimes I have to do like bullet points and all this other stuff, and then sometimes I have to get gameplay in which I have to go and do it, and then I have to go record and do commentary, or for like discussion analysis, I have to make sure I'm not putting foot in mouth and looking like an asshole or ass, sorry. And that's the thing. Like it takes a lot, and I hope to do it as much as possible for as long as I can until the game is done. But at the same time, I don't think I'm going to be able to do. I don't know where I was going with that, but that's kind of where the mindset is right now as far as my YouTube and where it got me and all this other stuff. So yeah.
Well, I've been following you for quite some time, and just I guess speaking as a whole, I think we as content creators for Dragon Ball Super, it's still pretty fairly new. Like there's not a lot of there's a lot of content creators in general, but when you're in the niche of Dragon Ball Super, there's not that many. Like there's 100,000 YouTuber for Yu-Gi-Oh, but like for when it comes to Dragon Ball, there's none compared to that. I mean, obviously the game hasn't been as fleshed out as Yu-Gi-Oh has been, but what I will say is, for the amount of Dragon Ball Super content creators that there's a lot of quality with these content creators. Eggman, Crossworlds. I think I could put myself in that category as well. Super players for what they are. That they were one of the first people to get out there.
There's always a preface for them. I love them to death. I really do. And I met them in San Diego. I know a lot of people have a lot of opinions on them, but I think if it wasn't for super players, we wouldn't have as big as community as we do.
I agree 100%. I think super players is very necessary for like the people that are trying to get into the game, because they're gonna spark their interest with the entertainment aspect of it, and then they're gonna branch off to the competitiveness. I mean, super players and Kitchen Table Meta were my gateway YouTube channels. Like that's how I got into it, because they were more like
definitely
introductory level, and then I started branching out and getting to the more competitive, 3xG and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what, I could do this. So I started doing it myself.
Right. You know, that was the other thing. I was like, dude, I don't even know if I ever get on like 3xG's level. And then I realized I surpassed him on subs. And I think, you know, that's not bragging or anything like that, but that also speaks to like, how much you need to put work in. Cause I know he's a very busy guy. I know Matt's a very busy guy. I don't know him, but I know he's busy. I know he's working on the Patreon as well as like the articles and all the stuff. And he doesn't put out content as much as you and I would, or Egman or whatever on YouTube. So it just also speaks to like, sometimes quantity over quality is kind of important when it comes to YouTube too, and keeping that traction.
Yeah.
So
I definitely agree with that. I mean, I think you can separate the levels of content that you're putting out. I mean, Matt, was focusing on his YouTube channel for a long time, and then he just kind of jumped on the Patreon and ran with it. And he's probably has the most successful, if not one of the most successful Patreons in our game. So that seems to be, you know, his baby and what he's working on. But for those that are patrons of his page, he's constantly putting out content for that specific category. And then obviously, you know, we have the YouTube, and, you know, I know Joey has his Patreon too. So there's still content. It's just different ways of consuming that content. But at the end of the day, everybody's still putting an effort to make all the content, which I think sometimes people lose sight of that. Like, I mean, I can't speak for what you do. I'm sure you put in a ton more effort because you're probably using, you know, more intricate software and editing and stuff like that. You know, my YouTube channel is, and I have no shame saying this, my YouTube channel is literally run from my smartphone. I do everything on my smartphone. My videos. I mean, everything.
That might speak to like how good you are though, because if you can do that and make sure to like do pretty well in it, I think that kind of is a testament to it, right?
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So, yeah, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. I think we're in an age of it doesn't even matter, you know, as long as you get it out. Like I think about this where like we're in a huge, like it's a very small niche, and I always think about like if I put this amount of effort and everything else like that, like research into another niche where it's a little bit bigger and a bigger IP, like, you know, Dokkan or Legends or whatever, would I be more successful? And when I continue to do that, would I enjoy myself as well? And you know, I think about that all the time. And I also think about like where, you know, if I stepped on my game in this, would it matter? Or can I do the same thing over and over again? That type of thing. Right. It's just those kind of thoughts of, okay, now what? You know, I don't know. It's just one of those things. I always think about that. If I should switch to something else, or if I should do something else, or.
I mean, if you decide if you decide to make that decision and go down a different road, just continue to do what you're doing, because you do, you know, really great work, you know, with your YouTube channel and your content, and the audio quality is really nice. Like everything works out. So I understand if you want to try to branch off, but for selfish reasons, just keep your channel consistent, because you're definitely one of my go-to guys. So, and I definitely appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. So that was the other thing. That was the other thing I was thinking about. Like if like my goal, which I don't know if it's possible or not, is to get to 1,000 or 10,000 by the end of the year. I don't know if that's going to happen. I think 5,000 is a little bit better as far as a goal. But when I do get to that point, I do want to work towards other means and other like YouTubers and content creators that aren't within the actual DBS community, so that way you can kind of branch out more and make sure that you know, we get a little bit more audience. And that reminds me when you're asking about like the come up, I guess, or the when I was building a YouTube channel, or where I got from right now, is that I was working with D-Free. You know D-Free?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, he's a big Dokkan YouTuber, and like I love the man. Like, honestly, he's a great guy. I don't think he does too much of DBS content anymore, but like the dude has like 200,000 subs.
Wow. So
when he reached out to me and thought like, hey, you know, we should work together and do a video and all that stuff. We did a video of like how to play the Dragon Ball Super card game, basically. that was fun, but that also like inspired me to like be like, you know, who else is there out there who is interested in the card game but doesn't have a representative for that. So instead of picking someone like, no offense to them, but someone like Super Players or Pro Play Games or Kitchitama Meta, could they pick me, and can I, you know, get into that and feature them on my channel and vice versa, and to get people in the card game and all that, right? So I think that's also a goal. Like I really want to make sure that I do try to do that throughout the year too. That would be pretty good.
I mean, it's definitely good to set yourself some goals. Like my goals are super what's it called? Realistic. I mean, my goal was to be at 1,000 subs within my first year of being on YouTube, and I was able to crush that in 7 months. So I was like, okay, you know, if people are willing to support me and subscribe to my channel, then I have to step up my game. So I think there was a lot of shift. You know, I kind of stepped it up as far as being more casual on YouTube to trying to be more, I don't want to say like game breaking or anything like that, but I definitely consider myself to focus a lot more now on the competitive aspect of the game than I used to. There was a lot of times where I used to just, and it's probably, you know, at some point, I think everybody who does a YouTube might fall into this pattern, but there used to be a time where I was just making videos every day just to make a video, like just to upload something, just to have something there. And I realized that that's probably not the best thing to do because there's no substance behind it. So, you know, I used to have a segment. I used to have a segment on my YouTube channel called All the Right Spice, and it was every Friday I would get 2 leaders, throw them down on the table, and they were always trash, garbage leaders. Throw them down on the table and let people vote. Hey, which leader do you want to see me build a deck with? I would build a deck, I would play test it, and then I would just kind of give my feedback. But there was never anything concrete. Like there was never any gameplay with that deck. There was never any analysis with that leader. There was just pick a leader, I'll build a deck, and I'll let you know how it goes. And then I kind of pulled back the curtain a little bit and looked at it and was like, well, does this really benefit the community at all? You know, I mean, yeah, it's cute. You know, it might be something that people like to vote on stuff with polls and stuff like that, but I'm not really benefiting the community here. So I peeled back and I pulled back a lot of the, I guess, quote unquote, unnecessary
type of things like that.
Unnecessary type of things that I was uploading. And then I kind of got into a lull, and I didn't know exactly how to offer competitive content with a limited, you know, source of uploading. So then I just decided to stumble upon the whole gameplay thing. And then that's when the Battle Chamber came out. And I feel like that's probably where I lend the most competitive knowledge or most competitive aspect to YouTube, is the battle chambers and the actual gameplay. Sometimes you might see decks on there that are not so competitive, but for the most part, people are looking for that type of gameplay so they can see how things play out before they decide if they want to build a deck for themselves or not. So, you know, and then for you, you're like the Untap king. Like you're a monster when it comes to that Untap. Like, you know, you're throwing tournaments on there and you're doing, you know, gameplay videos, and that helps because, you know, Dragon Ball doesn't really have an official online client when it comes to this game, which I really think Bandai's dropping the ball on that. But, you know, Untap and Octagon are probably your two.
I not to cut you off, but I will say that Bandai, like, by the end of the year, they're going to have an announcement, and I think it's going to be after Nats that they're going to have an online client, because there's the signs are there, like, the set slowing down, the expansions being a little bit, you know, spread it out, and just the fact that, you know, they acknowledged that and put out like surveys and stuff like that. I would bet money, I would bet money that they're gonna have an online client announced by the end of the year, like easily.
Now, do you think it's gonna be something along the lines of how Yu-Gi-Oh had like YGO Pro or something like that, but like officially licensed, or do you think it's going to be like an actual like game where you purchase it either on the mobile? Like, what would you do for the online client for this game?
Well, let's not get crazy on specifics. I was just making sure that we can get an online client, but I think it would probably be something to do with or something similar to like Duel Links, where they have like set 1 to 3. at first.
Okay.
And then as it builds on, it would get further into the other sets. And the reason for this is because they need to separate the player base between the online community and as well as the player base in like regionals and in person. And I've been changing my opinion about this back and forth, but I think like originally I thought I didn't really want an online client, but now I think we're kind of due for one. Like I said, by the end of the year would be perfect. And I didn't want people to be torn away from going to locals or going to whatever, like the regional events and stuff like that, celebrations. And if they do it right, where they can have the online client for people who want to play that and build their account and all the other stuff, but also have that as the gateway thing for the game for people who want to play, it would be perfect. So that way they can, like I said, do sets 1 to 3, or set 1 to 2 if they want to do that, if they really want to break it down and slim it down, and to let people play that and have Dragon Ball Super Card Game at the core, and then build it from there, where it'll release sets, it'll do like DLC or like paid packs or whatever they want to do in that system. And then at that point, we will still have up to set 7, up to set 8 by the end of the year in person. So that way they'll give more incentives for the people who want to collect the card game and go out and play and all other stuff, right? So I think if they do it that way and they execute it the right way, and the online client isn't like bad, then it'd be perfect. That's exactly what I want.
It definitely sounds interesting. It definitely sounds like you've thought about it for quite some time. But getting back to what we were talking about on Untap, so you've had some success in running the tournaments on Untap, through your Discord and Stage Zero and all that other stuff. So my question to you is, because I know you've done both, you've played both on Untap and in real life, and this might be a silly question, but I just want to get your perspective of someone who's had experience with both aspects of the game. Do you prefer playing online on Untap or playing in person?
I think I actually play better in person, but also like in times I really just want to play, I think I play better in online. As far as preferring, I think Untap is good. It's just a little buggy sometimes and a little annoying to deal with. So I think nothing really beats the physical touch of being able to put down your cards and things of that nature. So I think I preferred playing in person, as long as I can, physically choose my playmat and my sleeves and being able to shuffle my hand and stuff like that. It's kind of nice. I would say a little bit better in person.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I definitely agree with that sentiment. I mean, I've always been, of the belief that, playing in actuality in real life is much better than playing online. But I will say that, Untap and Octagon. I mean, I don't use Octagon personally as much. I just prefer Untap because it's a lot easier. I don't have to download a program or anything like that. Just go on Untap and do what I have to do. But I think what they're there for, as far as my opinion is, like, as far as, what I think, Untap is a really good tool or a really good resource for people to practice. And I think that, people are like, are you talking about practice? Like, practice is really important because, nerves, real life situation, believe it or not, sometimes you just are good and draw good cards, and sometimes you're just bad and draw bad cards. Like, that all takes into consideration, when you're playing in real life. But having the nerve or the wherewithal to be calm in those situations and understand, your deck and understand how you're playing it, I think that's what Untap is really good for, because in most of the experiences that I've had on Untap, I've played against people who are not playing your run-of-the-mill deck that you're gonna run into at like a major event. They're either playing something that's off the cuff or rogue, and even though I want to test against the meta, that's what locals are for. For me, on Untap, I'm testing against all these rogue decks so that I'm prepared for every situation, even though it might be an uncomfortable matchup, or I might have, it might be a minus matchup for me, or sometimes you just blow your opponent out because you're just playing an overall better deck. But I think Untap, and sometimes it gets a little bit of flack for it, it's not. I don't. People sometimes think that Untap is like, oh, that's the online DBS. It's a tool for us to practice and to have access to the cards before they come out. So that way, you know, when you're talking about finances, somebody doesn't have to go spend $700 on a case of cards or whatever it is to just get a specific archetype that they want to build. So I think that, you know, it's a good tool for us to use. And I'm glad that you are completely like all in on it, like in using it to your advantage, because it's nice to see, to be honest. Like, you know, I honestly just don't like Octagon, the layout or the way it's set up, and it doesn't translate well to YouTube, so it's like kind of clunky. But I really do like how Untap is just it's as seamless of a transition as it is from your screen to my screen. Maybe you just have a great program or whatever, but from what the videos that I watch that you do, where you're using Untap, it's just like I feel like I'm actually there, and that might sound a little weird because it's all virtual, but it feels like I'm in front of the screen watching you play, which is good because you make it feel like, you know, you make it feel like it's happening real time, and then your analysis on it, you know, the commentary and everything, you know, actually puts me in that situation, which it helps. You know, it's another way of learning the game, and you know, you do it better than everybody else, and I really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So, like I said, I do love Untap, and I think you know, it's funny. I have a schedule of stuff. And sometimes just notes and things like that. So, I write down like ideas, and I write down like things I want to make videos on, because I have a terrible memory. It just doesn't work the way, like, my brain just doesn't work. So I come back to different ideas, and sometimes they change. So I had a video planned, and I started writing for it. So I had like 1,100 words or something like that, but things keep changing, obviously. And that video was 5 things for a new player to go to. And one of them was playing online. And I had both Untap and Octagon as options, obviously, right? And the thing is that I wanted to compare. It was a whole gimmick or a whole joke, but I wanted to compare of like the setup versus the two, basically. So yeah. I was just like, for Octagon, you're gonna have to go to the website, you're gonna have to download the client, you have to download the image files, you have to wait for an update, you have to go into the lobby, you have to wait for it, you also have to wait for the thing to upload and then download the images from their images, and then if the other person isn't playing the right images, as far as I know, they can't play the same cards, or it's gonna show up the wrong way, and then you have to update your .NET what you call it, your .NET thing, like the Microsoft exe or whatever it is. And then after doing that and then showcasing that and showing all the screenshots and the video, I go over to Untap, and then it says register, log in, and then start playing. Yeah. Like that's the whole premise of it. And another thing was that you were talking about like janky decks. I love Untap and just the online thing in general, because you have access to a whole card pool that you won't be able to access at home.
Exactly.
Like for me, like I don't buy secrets. I don't buy a lot of promos. Sometimes I just wait for it to go down and then buy it when people aren't like thinking of it. And then I was like, oh, look at this, guys. This is a good deck, and then it goes back up. And then the other thing is I hate like resleeving sometimes. Like I have, I don't know, like 8-10 different types of sleeves, and it's still not enough. So nothing beats me copying and pasting a deck, or like entering a card name and then just like putting a playset in and then just go from there, you know, versus me, you know, putting all the other stuff in sleeves.
Yeah. I mean, the simplicity on Untap is just, you know, I wish the searching was a little easier, because sometimes like I want to search for something and I wish there was like, maybe I'm just bad and don't know how to do it yet, but I wish there was like more specific searching, like kind of how like the official Dragon Ball Super website has, where you can search with all the drop down menus. You can search the type of card, the set. You can search all that. I wish that Untap had that type of search engine, because sometimes I just can't find things on there. But for the most part, it's pretty simple. I mean, you just type in like what you want, you add it, you save it, and then you just go play it.
Yeah.
The mechanics are pretty easy. I just noticed that your mic went on mute there.
I'm here. Yeah. Sorry. I didn't want to be on mic and drink water.
No, it's fine, dude. You're good. I mean, I drink water on here sometimes too, so you don't have to worry about that type of stuff. But
okay.
Yeah, I mean the untap mechanics are pretty simple. I mean it's not too hard to just start playing. You might need like a warm up game or like a tune up here and there, but Octagon for me when I had it was like the hassle of downloading the file and uploading this and getting the image patch and doing this and doing that, and then like trying to understand how to select my battle card and drag the arrow to where I wanted to attack was just like, what? Like, so then I found Untap and was just like, yeah, this is just way easier. I mean, I'm lazy sometimes, and and most of the time, hopefully nobody from my job listens to this podcast, but most of the time I'm playing Untap at work. So I need something quick.
They love.
Like just
a lot of people do that.
Yeah, just
don't you worry. A lot of people do that.
I just need it to be quick. I need to be able to minimize my window if somebody comes and takes a look over my shoulder, see what's going on. So Untap is the way, in my opinion. And if somebody's listening to this podcast that's new and trying to get into the game, you could definitely check out our channels, No Counters, No Combos, and Aandroidd on YouTube. But Untap is the way to go if you're trying to experiment with cards that you might not physically own. And it also helps you build the deck that you have. It helps you theorize, and it helps you playtest that theory and then decide whether you want to invest in that theory or not, which I think is really important in a card game.
Yeah, definitely. I think so too, and I think I like the visual nature of Octagon, but Untap isn't that bad. I think it's good enough. If they ever update it, to do bigger cards and like more set places or set areas for it, it might be pretty good. But I don't know. I really do like it, and the Untap tourneys are really cool. I'm trying to. I put out a poll of if anybody wants to do an Untap tourney that was free or cheap, for all restrictions lifted and bans, and as well as erratas lifted.
Oh
so
my God.
No Super Saiyan 3, or you can play Super Saiyan 3, you can play Goten, you can play Mecha, you can play Babidi. So far, at 60%, people are saying yes, and then as long as it's a free entry, it's 20%, and then no for 21%. That's 275 votes. And then people in the Discord are down for it too, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be pretty fun to look at and to watch. I think that would be a pretty good thing to make content for. Because people just been asking about it. Another thing is just people are like, well, I would say locals are like, you should do more tournaments, not only for Untap, but also for like in person. I've always made a joke of like, I'm okay talking bad about them, but Core TCG and just the way they run things sometimes for bigger events, I'm like, bro, I can do this under the Stage Zero name. And I was like, that's not a bad idea. Like the pipe dream is to become the TO for the West Side and do events and stuff like that and do it that way. But it's probably more convoluted than anything. But I think the Untap tournaments is really good practice, and I hope to do more as I have more time for it.
I mean, that's awesome. I mean, I didn't know that it stretched out that far. I mean, I thought you were just kind of doing it because something fell in your lap. But, obviously you're on the West Coast, so your main TO is going to be Core TCG. But yeah, I mean, if you can try to maybe start, like you said, on a local level and just start trying to organize some events. I mean, being a TO is a little hard. It's not that. I mean, the most important thing about being a TO is making sure that people show up for your events, right? So, I wouldn't consider myself the TO for Northern New Jersey, where I'm from, but I had a lot. I have myself and a lot of the players in our community that started off playing, like the originals. We've had a lot, just to do with growing the scene ourselves. When I started playing this game, there were stores few and far between that were hosting Dragon Ball Super tournaments. Like it was like the new thing that nobody knew about. After constantly going to my one local, we formed a partnership, and first it was a sponsorship, now it's a partnership, and then we just kind of decided to grow it from there to the point where there's a local in my area every day of the week. You can go to a different store every day of the week and go play Dragon Ball. So we've gotten to that point. I'm actually working on a new location now for Thursday nights, because the current location that we have is kind of like hit or miss. But that's a conversation for a different day. But you're looking at more of like a the grand scheme of everything, being the actual tournament organizer. And that would be really cool, man. I like what you're doing with the Untap. You've done several of them, so you've obviously had success, and you've had, a good amount of time, organizing it and handling it. And it seems like you got your head wrapped around it, which is really good. But what inspired you to start those Untap tournaments online?
Probably the demand, I'd say. So like people who are talking about, well, first there were people who were commenting, and talking in the Discord of like, my locals are dead, or I can't go this far to do a tournament just for the week and stuff like that. So, that was one of the reasons. And another reason is that like, I'm trying at least to do one every set. So anything that comes out, anything new that comes out, like the new expansions that are coming out this next month, I'll probably do one for that. Those are the two main things. I was just like, that would probably be a good idea. And since I played so much on Untap, I ended up building a community around those people who play Untap. So, it was just easier to do that. It was just easier to kind of bring people together, based on that. And, it worked out. I think the hardest thing is, making sure enough people are signing up, just like how people would show up for a regular tournament. And another thing is just figuring out pricing, because when you add more and more pricing, you add more and more to the logistics of it, of, sending out things. And when you start trying to split out like a box, you would have to, like, instead of sending out one box to one person, you have to send out one box to like 4 people. And those are 4 different, pieces of shipping costs that I have to pay out of pocket, which I've done. It's no big deal. Yep. But it just becomes more and more complicated. So I'm trying to make sure that I do simplified tournaments, but also ones that people would, play for and wouldn't mind actually, taking the time out and doing that sort of thing. I think the easiest way is, single elimination, where one person get a prize, and then I can just order it from the money from the tournament that I get, and then send it directly to them. So that way I don't have to worry about going out to the post office or doing my own post and shipping. The store will handle it. If there's any issues, then I can contact the store and make sure to do it. And, they don't have to contact me and fix it, because I'm like, I didn't order it. I just paid for it. I didn't do it. So, it's a learning curve. It's definitely a learning curve, but I like to definitely continue it.
You feel like you obviously, I mean, natural progression of you doing it for such a while now. I'm assuming you feel more confident and more comfortable doing it now than you did in the beginning. But do you feel like what steps did you take from when you first started doing the Untap tournaments to where you are now that kind of solidified your ease of doing the actual events online? Like, is there anything in particular that you used to do that you no longer do? Or is there something that you didn't do that you now do to just make it a little better for yourself?
I think the biggest thing was the timing of it. So, like, trying to figure out the best time is impossible. There's way too many people in too many different places. So, like, you and me on the East and West Coast, we would have to figure out a time that's best for people to play at the same time. And if people are late, how do I penalize that? How do I say, okay, I keep the money and you don't play? Or how do I say, I return the money, but how do I pay for the rest of the stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Is it going to come out of my pocket? So that's a big thing. And another thing is, moving to self-scheduling, which means, within 48 hours, they have 48 hours to play their game. And then all they have to do is just contact me or someone else in the Discord who is a mod to reach out for like judge or for anything like that. And then just report it in a screenshot and just make sure they can prove that they won or they lost or whatever. I think that's the biggest change and probably the most helpful change as far as timing goes. And, as we continue to kind of to go through Untap tournaments, I think that's probably the best way to do it going forward, whether it's Swiss, which is another thing. I was like, for a single elimination, it's easy because a person can think about it of like, okay, yeah, 48 hours, if there are a single elimination of 8, at the most is going to be within the week, right? Because you would have 1, 2, 3, about 3 different matches within those single elimination rounds. And you have to make sure that people won't lose interest or will actually have the time. It's just, I think that's the biggest thing. It's just time, figuring that out, and making sure that it works for everybody is the most challenging thing. It's easier for like yourself which I don't know if it's easier, but it would seem easier for yourself if everybody agreed and showed up on the right time. Like for me, it's every Tuesday at night, right? I always go at night, like after work on Tuesday, where I can't go on Saturday because I'm working, or Thursday because I have something else to do. But it's easier to know for that in person because everybody's local, but because everybody's everywhere in the world of everywhere, it's just better to allow that 40 hours.
Yeah, I mean, there seems to be a lot more moving parts when you're tackling such a big audience, which I'm sure is no minor feat. That you got a lot of work ahead of you to make sure that everybody's organized. Like you said, the entry. When money starts exchanging hands, people get. That's their money, so they want to make sure that they're not being led down the wrong path or whatnot. But I'm confident that you've got a good handle on it. You sound like you know what you're talking about. You know what you're doing. Obviously, you've had success because you've done several of them already. So, with that being said, I gotta get in on one of these eventually, man. It's just it's
just do the next one.
It's so tough.
It's most likely going to be free. The first place prize will be something cool, something I'll come up with. Just play in the unrestricted tourney, have some fun. That's another reason, that I've had a couple of different free ones, and some people are like, "Oh, I don't have time," or "I don't know if I want to pay like $10 for a box or whatever." But I think as long as you experience it and you got that experience, and you know that you can do it, and it's a good time, I think that'd be good. And another content creator would be good. I've been always talking. We were saying that in the group of like, we should all collab together. But I like we should like that's another pipe dream that I really want to do. I want to get Egman. I want to get you. I want to get Joey. I want to get a Super Players. I want to get Scorch. I want to get 3xG. All to do like a no holds bar like single elimination content creator tourney. And I don't know if that's ever gonna happen. It's like I said, it's a lot of moving parts, even for like scheduling and stuff like that. But it would be amazing.
Yeah, we could. You know what, dude? That sounds awesome. I can definitely help trying to reel in, some people. Scorch Corbin. He's a good friend of mine. I guess. Yeah. I mean, it's so weird calling people my friends, through an online community, but Corbin's a good guy. Yeah. We've had a couple conversations already. He's part of Scorch TCG. Joey's a good friend. We live in like 5 minutes away from each other in our hometown here in Jersey. So we can definitely, we can definitely reach out to some people. I mean, the bigger names like Super Players, that they might be tough to convince to do the tournament.
Like I said, pipe dream for them. Yeah, I think it's more able for the people you're mentioning. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we could definitely work on something. And I'll start sending out some feelers and seeing. I could probably get Ellipsis, which is another team that they have a YouTube channel now. Ellipsis TCG. I actually spoke with Dylan Ashcraft about that last week, so I could definitely hit him up. We'll work on something. We'll work on something behind the scenes and see what we're going. But you did mention the collab. And we've probably mentioned it a couple times on our respective channels, but you, myself, World TCG, and Egman, we formed the Super Tuber organization recently, and we definitely need to start utilizing that, and definitely start developing content as a team. I mean, I'm pretty sure we've all done guest uploads on people's channels. Like, I know I've done one for Joey, and I've done one for Eggman. So that's cool. It's nice to be a part of a group within a group. I think that's really awesome. I think Joey was the one that came up with the idea. Shout out to him. And it's a really neat concept. This brotherhood of this fraternity of brothers in Dragon Ball Super. But hey, right now it's just us, but we don't have to stop there. We can get other people to try to collaborate with, and like you said, just have a bigger outreach to the community, because we want to spread as much as we can so the game continues to grow.
Definitely. I think that's probably the best thing to do. I just like you were saying, I really do want everything in this game to grow and make sure that it continues to. But yeah, I think us and then people you mentioned, and I've always wanted to play, like, if he's ever going to listen, I know he watches my videos. Anthony Hernandez. I always wanted to play Anthony Hernandez, but just because I just like, even if I lose, I don't really care. But I always felt like I wanted to play him. And it's always funny because you mentioned the Untap tournaments. People who were on Untap when I was in San Diego, when they realized who I was, they realized that I played them like 1 or 2 times or half a dozen times on Untap, and they're like, "Oh, it's me," and they said their username, and I was like, "Oh, it's you," and I was like, I need to remember this because I don't know if I remember their username or not. I played so many games. I played like 1,200 games on Untap. But yeah, there's some people, and then there's other people who are on Untap or in the Untap tourneys, like Kelchin. Shout out to him because he's actually on the Shenron Layers team. And then there's B Samuel, who's Brian Samuel, the guy who won the Las Vegas regional.
Okay.
We met in like the top tables in San Diego. I was like, dude, I told you I was gonna meet you. He was like, who? I was like, Aandroidd. He was like, oh, yeah. I was like, yeah, dude. But it's just stuff like that, man. Like the stuff that you're saying, like fraternity and like the community. That's just what I love. And the more people we bring together, I think it's gonna be great. It's gonna be real good.
I mean, at the end of the day, as both content creators and players in this game, we just want it to continue to grow for multiple reasons. I mean, I want it to continue to grow because I want to be able to have content to put out for the community, but I also want to play the game as well. So it's like a double-edged sword, you know. We all want what's best for the game. We all have the same pure intentions. But you did mention about, meeting people at events and stuff like that. I personally don't go to many large events. I went to one. It was an ARG event last year in Atlantic City, and at that point I wasn't, or I should say we here at No Counters, No Combos weren't as well known as we are now. But there were still people coming up, because I have a mat. I made a play mat that says No Counters, No Combos. So when I would throw it on the table, they'd be like, "Oh, I know you." Do you wear like any merch, or do you have any identifiers when you go to these events so that people can recognize you?
It's funny. So FC1 Drifter, shout out to him. I made a playmat. Well, I didn't make the playmat, but I sent him a playmat. He ordered it for me. A whole different thing. Hopefully my merch, as far as playmats and other things, will go well later this year. That's a plan. But his has a Goku Black with the Stage Zero logo on it. My buddy, who, if you watch my channel, he's been on it a couple times, Josh, has a playmat that has Stage Zero on it, but it has Boo stuff on it, like Boo, Kid Boo, and then Fat Boo. And then my playmat is the Aandroidd 18. So it was funny because the Aandroidd 18 one, I don't know what's going on with me. Realize who I am. I'm like, I am nothing special, guys. Like, whoever's listening to this, I am nothing special. Don't worry, I'm just another guy. They always ask me after we play, or they always go to someone else to be like, dude, I think that was Aandroidd, or whatever, right? And then for the other two who I made playmats for, and they saw the Stage Zero logo, they're like, yo, are you Aandroidd? And my buddy Josh got asked twice because I guess he sounds like me. And then a Drifter got asked once. And then when they were telling me this, I was like, dude, what? And then Josh was playing around because he was like, yes, I am him. I'm like, no. I was also, because like at first the anonymity thing and no video, no stuff like that, like the merch thing, like I didn't have any identifiers. I don't put my face on my videos and stuff like that. At first, it's because, similar to who I was talking about, D-Free was successful in a Dokkan meta. I like to think that YouTube is a meta as well, in which he didn't do his face, he didn't show his face and stuff like that. And that could be attributed to, both of us being of ethnic proportions, being black, and that's a whole different thing. I'm not going to put that. Don't worry about that. I'm not going to talk about that. But that's one thing in which, if he can be successful, I can be successful in this too. So that was my thought process. The other thought process was that I can focus on the content and not focus on how I look or the merch or whatever. People can focus on the actual video and content and the things that I'm saying. So I was happy about that, but it's kind of turning out to be a thing where, who's the Aandroidd boogeyman apparently, or who's the man behind the voice at events, and I kind of like that, where people can kind of find me and kind of be happy, and I can talk to them or whatever. I'm not gonna go out in there and be like, hey, I'm Aandroidd, but eventually, under the Sagio name or whatever name I'll be taking or being sponsored, I'll eventually have my name on my back or on my front or a logo or whatever, so that people can kind of watch out for it. But right now, it's sort of like a Spartacus thing in which anybody can say they're Aandroidd and try to prove it, that sort of thing. I just always found that funny. It's like going to these recent events, and it was just a cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I understand what you're saying with the whole face cam situation. I mean, when I first started, the YouTube thing, I told myself from the beginning, I'm not going to put my face on YouTube because I just didn't want to do it. Like, I wasn't comfortable doing it. Like, everybody's self-conscious about something. I mean, I'm not self-conscious about like my appearance, but I was, self-conscious about what people would translate me putting my own face in my own video, like the narcissism that comes with it. But I made a conscious decision to put my face in some videos because I wanted it, and again, I totally respect you for making your decision, and I'm not trying to sway you or anything like that, but I feel like sometimes people ask why and why not, and from my reasoning, the reason I wanted to put a face to the voice was so that people can see that there was genuine emotion in what I was trying to portray. A lot of the times when you're listening to somebody's voice, people that are more animated like yourself or myself, yes, you can hear the enthusiasm in the conversation, you can hear the level of vocabulary, stuff like that, helps portray a message, and it comes across as this person is really passionate. But to some people, if they can't put a face to that voice and they can't see your minor like movements or how your face like says a word or anything like that, just the enthusiasm behind it and the passion behind it, I wanted to just try to come off as genuine as possible. I did a video one time where I was doing a box opening for, I forgot what set it was, but I was doing a box opening live in real time, and after rendering the video, I had an issue with the audio. So instead of scrapping the video, I went back and I dubbed it. Like I did commentary over my pack openings, and I tried to line it up so it would come off as as organic as possible. And a lot of people, nobody really said anything, but the one person that did was a really good friend of mine. His name is Gary, who I had on the podcast a couple weeks ago. He has his own YouTube channel, and he was telling me that it kind of comes off as you're being fake. Like you can tell that the audio is done in post, and I didn't want people to experience that because I want it to be as genuine as possible. I'm not saying you're not genuine. Believe me, that's not what I'm saying. But for me personally, I made that decision because I wanted people to be able to relate. And sometimes, I guess they want to not only be involved with your content audio, with hearing it, but they also wanted to be involved with it visually. So that's the decision I made. I know it's not for everybody, but I decided to do that, and it helps because you know what? Nobody else on YouTube looks like me, so if somebody sees me at an event, they can easily recognize me, so that's cool too, because those people that come up and say hi, those are the ones that make a huge difference, because it's like, oh, I'm actually doing something that is reaching out to somebody. The 5 people that said hi to me when I went to that event in AC, those were the coolest 5 people I ever spoke to. So, it's nice to get some recognition. Not that we look for it, but it's nice to get it, because we are, at the end of the day, we're still taking time out of our personal lives and schedules and work and school and this, that, and the third to put content out on the most part, for no monetization, really. I mean, some Patreons are successful, and for the most part, a lot of our content on YouTube is free for the public to view. So it still takes effort at the end of the day. So with that being said, you've been doing the YouTube for quite some time. You've had success with it. I know, obviously, you monetize your videos. Have you ever thought about jumping into the whole Patreon thing to try to help support or make up for the I guess just to put it plainly, the lack of contribution or compensation that you get from YouTube to help you with your Untap tournaments or anything further that you wanted to do with the growth of your channel?
Yeah and no. Well, the thing is that, YouTube is okay. There's a lot of different ways to make money off YouTube. It doesn't have to be monetization. And I haven't really taken hold of that just yet because, I still think there's I haven't really hit the ceiling as far as audience goes. So, making sure that I do that, and then having a good audience and base for that, or fan base for it first, and then going to that kind of stuff is probably going to be the way to do it for me. But first, as far as Patreon goes, I always made fun of it. Like, I didn't really make fun of it, but I always made jokes about it before. But then I saw like Joey, I've seen like 3xG and then all these other teams and pro play players and stuff like that make Patreon, which makes sense. If you want to make additional content, that's great. That's awesome. And I think if, just like you were saying, just being a little bit more compensated, and for those people who actually want to put out more to get more, there's like, it's $1. Like most of them are $1. It's not that big of a deal to me. It shouldn't be that big of a deal to people, is what I'm saying. But I think for me that, I don't know if I'm going to do a Patreon anytime soon, simply because I don't know if I'm going to have enough content for people to pay for, right?
Right.
I don't feel like I'm, not that I'm good enough, but I feel like I would let people down, in the way of like, putting out what I want to put out. I think, maybe I'm putting the bar a little too high as far as that goes, but I don't know if I'll have enough time and as well as the effort to split between the actual YouTube channel and as well as the Patreon, for one. And the other is that I think for people to support me, one, obviously watching my videos is going to be the best thing to do. I think the more that I bring people together and put out information, like I just did the Chile video, the nationals for Latin America. Yep. I was super happy to do that one because now I have people from Latin America and other places coming out and commenting or messaging me or whatever, that I did not know of. I did not know. And that's the type of thing I like to bring to it. Another thing is that, other than watching the channel, is that, participate in the Discord as well as the Untap tournaments, and then merch. I plan to do a playmat store. I've been, at least for a store for playmats, and then other things like shirts or whatever, if anybody wants those. I'll work on those first, but right now, my plan is to do maybe, like 8 to 10 playmats for people to choose from, and then I can make those to order, processing through, like Ink Gaming or something like that at my price, or to figure out how to do playmats of my own. So that'll be part of that merch, hopefully later this year, if I can get that together. And then, t-shirts and stuff like that, like I was saying. And another part is that instead of doing a Patreon, I really wanted to do, sponsorships on YouTube instead, because again, the ceiling for DBS, may be hit, one day, right?
Right.
But I don't want to take away from, like a Patreon or whatever based on that. And if the game ever dies, I still want to be the person I am, and I still want to have the audience and hopefully transition to something else or a different focus. And that's why, if you look at my description, it's not, Dragon Ball Super, it's just Dragon Ball and analysis and stuff like that. I can do the same thing, I feel like, in Keyforge. I can still do the same thing in Pokemon. I can still do the same thing in another up-and-coming game like the Naruto game, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why I'd rather do a sponsorship for YouTube, which is like $3 or $4 or $4 or $5 a month, which is similar to being a Patreon, but it's for those people who actually really want to support me. And maybe I won't get as many people as a Patreon would for $1, but at the same time, I feel like I would for those people who actually want to spend money and support me. The support for that, and it will bring up, it will help out for, like I said, the conversation as far as like just putting out the time for it, but also for the pricing for Untap tourney. Like I have a pretty good job. Like I'm not gonna brag or anything like that, but I have a pretty good job. I get paid pretty well. The money thing is not important to me,
right?
But in capitalizing and making sure that I get out what I want to get out. Yeah, I think sponsorship is a little bit better. And then hopefully working out the perks for that sponsorship. So is it a special, like probably it's going to be a special Discord, not only the name and role, but also early access to videos or early access to content or content that I don't even put on the channel and make videos specifically for events and more competitive things or whatever it may be, right? So I think those are the type of perks that I want to think about. And probably if I ever do articles, it'll be completely separate from Patreon. It's not very hard to do like a blog or whatever, and then put that separately for people to view. So those are the kind of ideas that I really have in mind, and it's going to take a while to kind of implement because I really want to do it very specifically. I don't want to do it haphazardly, but it's going to come. It's definitely going to come.
I mean, it sounds like you definitely thought it out. It sounds like you're taking the Patreon model and just kind of breaking it down individually and still using its formula, just not on that platform, which, hey, as long as you're getting your information across to someone that needs it, you're still doing what you're supposed to be doing. The whole paywall thing behind content is very controversial, and I'm not going to get into it right now because I'm just not going to do it. But if for those of you who are listening that are on the fence about, becoming a patron to somebody's Patreon page, Cross World TCG does, in my opinion, Patreon the right way. Joey still pumps out 4 to 5 videos a week on YouTube on top of what he's doing on his Patreon. So it's not,
he's killing it.
Yeah, he's, if there's anybody that deserves it, and again, I have no ill will towards 3XG or anybody else who has dabbled or tried to come up with a Patreon. I get it. But if there's anybody who deserves our support, it's definitely Crossworld TCG because of the amount of his workload. I mean, he's still doing 4 to 5 videos a week, and they're all good videos, good topics, good conversation, good quality. His YouTube channel is very successful, and he's been great with it. But on top of that, now he's adding another layer to it with his Patreon. So if there's anybody that can use our support, it's definitely Crossworld TCG, especially because we all know the situation. He's a college student, so he definitely wants to be able to support the community by doing more, but sometimes you have to draw the line. And I mean, like you said earlier, you have a good paying job. I have a good paying job as well. So the money is not, we're not doing this for the money individually, right? We're doing it for the betterment of the community. But sometimes you have an idea that has to be backed financially. That's just not something that you can afford to pay for out of pocket. That's what I take out of it. So every little bit helps.
Yeah, exactly.
So I definitely agree with what you're saying. I definitely can't wait to see your playmat store. I'm excited to see what designs you have in store for the community. But we've been talking for a little bit over an hour now, and it's getting kind of late here on the East Coast. So I wanted to thank you for spending some time with us today. You're definitely more than welcome to come back anytime so we can continue our conversation, because I feel like we definitely have a lot more that we can talk about. So we can definitely revisit at some other time, some point in the future. But for those who are listening who for some reason are living under a rock and have no idea who you are, how can we find you on social media or YouTube or anything like that?
I mean, as soon as you type in my name, Aandroidd, into YouTube, that should be the first one. And then you can always reach out to me or join the community in Discord, and then go from there. I don't really have too many other ones. I want to keep it nice and tight,
That's important. I mean, you want to keep your thumb over everything, and it is pronounced Android, right? Not like a Android or a Aaron or anything like that. It is pronounced Android. So
yeah, just Android.
Yeah, just Android. Just an extra A and an extra D on the end there. But again, thank you so much for joining us. I was really excited for this, and it turned out beautifully, and I'm excited for people to listen to us ramble for over an hour, but I'm pretty sure they'll be excited. Yeah. With that being said, we are going to get on out of here. Thank you again so much for joining us tonight. And for those of you listening, we will be back again next week with another episode. In the meantime, hopefully you guys enjoy this one, but that's all we have for tonight, or today rather. So we'll talk to you next time. Be there or be squared.